Started. All right, so we are in Module 4, which if you haven't noticed is the last module in the course. So we're almost done, and I think there's only 4 lessons in it, so we're already on Lesson 2. Today is what we're looking at, so we're almost done. So this lesson, Lesson 1, last week we talked about renting an apartment and how much you should budget for your rent per month and just kind of the different pieces that go with renting an apartment. Today we're going to look at buying a house. So similar concepts, but instead of renting, we're actually looking at owning. So buying a home, the first thing that we want to look at least what they say in this lesson, I don't know how accurate this is currently because things change, you know, with home buying and loans and everything, but from our lesson in the course, just like renting an apartment, it does suggest that you budget a 35% of your income to go towards your mortgage. That's what we call our monthly payments on a home. Just like we were saying for renting an apartment, your rent amount is just called something different when you buy a house. So 35% of your income is the suggestion here for what you should pay each month for your mortgage. So same thing as kind of what we did last week. If we wanted to figure out what we could afford, we could start with our income. So I'm just going to make up an income here so that we can do an example problem. So let's say that we make $53,000 a year. And we want to know what we can afford for a house payment. Okay, well this is per year. Last week we worked mostly with monthly income. Now we're going to look at more of like a salary if we have a career or a job. So $53,000 per year. So first of all, we want to get this in monthly income amounts. So how can we go from 1 year to determine how much we'd make in a month? What would we do with that number? Anybody have any ideas? Okay, so if this is how much we make per year, and we know that there are 12 months in a year, and we want to know how much we'd make per month, we would want to divide this into 12 pieces, 12 equal pieces for 12 months, right? So we can divide our annual income by 12 to determine how much we'd make per month. So if we divide that by 12, we're going to get $4,416.67. So that's how much we make per month if we take our annual income and divide it by 12. So this is what we want to use as our monthly income. And we know we want to see how much we can afford for a house, which should be 35% of that or less. So we're going to find 35% of that number. So $4,416.67 times 35%, which we want to write as a decimal, so 0.35. So when we multiply that, we get $1,545.83. So we could afford a house with a monthly payment of this amount, $1,545.83 or less. Anything over that, we would kind of just say that's too expensive for our budget. Okay, does that make sense? So just like what we did with rent last week, the only thing I did different this week is start with an annual income instead of monthly. Okay, so let's talk about down payments for homes. A lot of times when you go to buy a house, they're going to want you to put a down payment before you take out a loan. Okay, so let's talk about down payments. So I guess that's 2 words. The down payment percentage can be different from case to case. So there's not a set amount of a down payment that you have to pay or that you should pay. Sometimes to be financially responsible, they recommend that you try to make a 20% down payment or as close to that as you can. But that can be pretty expensive. So it just depends on the scenario that you're in. So we're just going to start. I'm just going to give us just a random example here with a random percentage. So let's say that we like a house and that the house cost $89,000. And we have to put a down payment, I'm going to put DP, down payment of 15%. Okay, that's how much we have to put down, which means that's how much cash we have to pay before we can even take out a loan for this home. Okay, so this is just like finding our budget like we did here, where we found a percentage of a number, doing the same thing. We're going to take the price of the home, $89,000, and we're going to multiply it by the percentage of our down payment that we want to put, which would be 0.15 when we write it as a decimal. We just multiply those. So when I multiply, as long as I've put that in a decimal form, I'm going to get $13,350, which means I need to put that much down before I take out a loan for the rest. Okay, and when we determine how much our loan would be for, we take that away from this number. So if we put down $13,350, we're going to take it away from the $89,000 that we started with, because this much is going to be out of the way. So when we take that away, whoops, we're going to be left with, sorry, I'm trying to do this the quickest way possible, $75,650. So this would be what we would need to use, or this would be our principal for our loan. Because remember, our principal is the amount borrowed. And then from there, you'd have to look at the interest rates on the loan, the number of years that you'd want to take it out to see how long you'd be paying on it. Usually, you're going to want to pick the least number of years if you want to pay it off the quickest. But if your budget is tight, then you may have to increase the number of years that your loan is taken out for so that you can have lower monthly payments. But then you'll end up paying more interest, because the higher number of years you're paying, the more interest you're racking up. So that just depends again on your scenario and how you're wanting to budget. Okay, so in this lesson, they gave us this chart that gave us monthly payments for mortgages, and the chart gives you the amount of loan over here in the first column. It gives you the percent interest rate in the top row, and then the second row has the number of years the loan is going to be taken out for. And then everything in between is the monthly payment. So just to show you kind of how this works, which you probably understand anyway, but if we were taking out a $60,000 loan, whoa, that was too big, hang on. If we're taking out a $60,000 loan at 9% interest for 20 years, then our monthly payment would be where those intersect, which is right here, $539.84. Now, this is the chart they gave us in the lesson. Again, I don't know how accurate this is. It should be. I haven't double checked and cross-referenced all this because a mortgage calculator is pretty, that formula is pretty involved. So, but for the lesson and for the questions that you're going to have on the assignment and the quiz, we are using this chart, and it is in your lesson under the assignment. So if you go to Module 4, Lesson 2, and you scroll to the page that has the assignment, this is in there. It's another attachment. Okay, so everyone's looks exactly the same. This is the one we're using. Okay, so that's how the table works, or how the chart works. Now the questions that you'll see to do with this are going to be things like, well, I'm just going to take one straight from the assignment. I'm going to look at number 3. it says Fred takes out a mortgage for $60,000 at 7% for 20 years. So $60,000 at 7% for 20 years. Okay, and it says what are his monthly payments, the total amount paid, and the cost of the mortgage. So the monthly payment we're going to find in this chart. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. We're at $60,000, but now we want 7% for 20 years. So 7% is the first 3 columns, but 20% or 20 years is right here. So our monthly payment for this one would be here, $465.18 per month. That's his monthly payment. Okay, the total, what was the next? Yeah, the total amount paid. So if we know he's paying this much per month, then we could find out how much he makes or how much he pays per year by multiplying this by 12 months in a year, right? That would give us how much he pays per year. So multiply by 12, and we'd get $5,582.16 per year. But the total amount paid is going to be over the whole 20 years. So we need to multiply that by the number of years that he's paying. So this needs to be multiplied by 20. And then we would know our total amount paid. So multiply that by 20, and we get $111,000, or sorry, $111,643.20 total. Okay, so I just multiplied it by 12 months to find how much he paid per year, and then times 20 to find out how much he pays for 20 years. Okay, so we start with the chart, find the monthly payment, and then start multiplying by our units to find the total amount paid. And then the last part of the question says, what's the cost of the mortgage? So this just means how much extra is he paying to finance it this way? So it started at $60,000, right? If we had $60,000 cash burning a hole in our pocket, he could have just paid it outright, but he didn't. So he had to finance it. And what he's going to pay extra is the difference between those two numbers. So the amount to finance, or the mortgage amount, the cost of the mortgage, is the difference between his total amount he's going to pay and the amount that the house originally cost, or the principal. Okay, so we would just subtract $60,000 from his total amount paid, which would be $51,643.20. So this would be the cost of the mortgage, which is almost the amount that we started with. So he's almost going to pay double because of all the interest that he's having to pay over those 20 years by getting this loan. Does that make sense? That was number 3 on the assignment. So if you want to write down those notes, that'd be helpful, because I just did one problem for you. Okay, and then there's another question on the assignment that wants to know a down payment amount, just like we did up here. It gives you the cost of the home, gives you the down payment percentage. You just multiply, just like I did here, to find the down payment amount. And then it gives you some closing cost fees. Closing costs are just fees that you have to pay when you buy a house, certain things that are included in the home buying process, such as having a survey done, an inspection done, some legal fees, because you know you're going to have to go through the realty company if you're doing it that way. So they're going to charge you some fees. The title, insurance, inspections, mortgage fees, all of that stuff is included in the closing costs. So there's another problem that gives you the fees for all of those certain things, and it just wants to know how much you're paying in closing costs. So you just add them together. So just write them down, add them up, and that's going to be your closing costs total. And that's pretty much it. Those are the questions. So aside from just knowing how to find a down payment and adding up closing cost fees, the only other thing you're going to need for this assignment and this lesson is this chart, which again is in the lesson. Okay, you'll have to just click on the attachment and just save it. All right, anybody have any specific questions for me?